Ayi Ayamba, MP for Pusiga, here with us this afternoon, and other members of parliament that I will be acknowledging in the course of today's encounter. I can also see here members of the Functional Executive Committee. Our party administration is here. Our communications director, Mr. Kakri Samwa, is here. My deputy, Kwekubwai, and other officials of the party are all here. We also have our hard-working members of our national communications team, and the ace of our flag bearer and leader, the next president of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. We have his spokesperson, Honorable Joyce Bawa Mokhtari, and the latest friend of Pius Ajide, Felix Ofusukwachi, here with us this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, let me acknowledge that this event is being live on about 80 digital platforms and media networks across the country. On social media, we are live on the NDC app. In the Upper East region, we are live on WED 88.3 FM, Pure 92.1 FM, 95.9 FM, Source 100.1 FM. In Northeast region, we are live on LOM 94.7 FM, Sharp 101.3 FM, Savannah FM. In the Northern region, we are live on Mainz 90.5 FM, ZAR Radio 99.3, Amana 107.1 FM, Radio Tamale 91.7 FM, Radio Kataulewa 95.7 FM, Huteli 103.3 FM, Simli Radio 95.3 FM, Justice 98.5 FM, Diamond 93.7 FM. Be acknowledging the rest of the radio and television stations who are carrying this briefing event live on their network in the course of today's proceeding. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, be mindful of the fact that COVID-19 is here. We are not a minimum of at least 1 meter between you and the person sitting next to you, and strictly adhere to all the safety and precautionary protocols of the World Health Organization and the Ghana. I am told we have a slight challenge in the sound, and so we want the technical people to fix that before we introduce the man and the president of this council.
Acknowledge all of you most highly for taking time off your very busy schedules to join us this afternoon. We are living in extraordinarily difficult times, and so to have you make the effort to join us today, despite a pandemic, it shows how serious you have taken our invitation. And so we really appreciate the time that you are going to spend with us this afternoon. I want to appeal to you that I may have to take off my face mask, even though the president last night informed us that wearing of face mask is now compulsory. I believe that with all due respect to His Excellency the President's directive, I am maintaining the required social distance, and I will do well to abide by the protocols so that we can be more engaging, and I will be more audible as I take off my face mask. It is not out of disregard for the COVID-19 protocols. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want us to begin by conveying our heartfelt condolences to our compatriots who have lost loved ones because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As I said earlier, these are particularly difficult times for the world. We are hit with a pandemic the like unknown in our lifetime. The experts tell us that the last time the world saw something like this was probably in 1918. I don't believe that any of us here were born at that time. And so we are all in uncharted waters, doing our best to survive. So on behalf of the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, the National Executive, the Minority Leader, the Parliamentary Caucus, we convey our deep, deep sympathies and condolences to those who are grieving. We also want to convey our solidarity with all those who are afflicted and are affected, who are sick, who are hospitalized at this moment. So we must also remember those who are stranded currently. I'll be remiss if I do not talk about our brothers and sisters who remain stranded beyond the shores of Ghana. Government has finally listened to our call and has put out some schedule of evacuations. We hope that government will expedite action on those evacuations, and we also hope to do something about it. Parliament not too long ago approved $12.7 million for quarantining purposes. We don't want to believe that those funds are exhausted. So there should be a dispensation for distressed Ghanaians who we genuinely cannot afford. They've already been out there, spent all their funds on hotel bills, living expenses. They really are in dire straits. And the least we can do, as many other governments have done, is to show empathy, is to really reach out for them and assist them. So we hope that our stranded compatriots will be brought back home soon. We do know that as at this morning, these are the number of confirmed cases, 11,964, active cases, 7,652, recoveries, 58. Really, really sad. One life lost is line healthcare workers. Worrying report line of duty, including as confirmed last see the President, our health minister, who has been leading the response. Speedy recovery, and we want them to know that cherishes the sacrifice that they are making. We are really proud of them as they combat COVID-19 on the front lines. We celebrate all the workers, all the security agencies who are leading this fight against COVID-19. So in that spirit, in the spirit of solidarity, in the spirit of empathizing with our compatriots who have lost loved ones, we want to rise at this point and observe a minute's silence in memory of those who have departed due to COVID-19. May the souls of the departed rest in perfect peace, and may the good Lord bless our efforts to combat the pandemic. Please be seated. So, distinguished compatriots, comrades and friends, I want to now outline what we will be doing in the next couple of hours. Scrutinizing, combing, going through all the pages, the 180 pages of the NPP manifesto to come to this conclusion. We also then carried out verification beyond what we have been told in Parliament. Because you know that the people we are dealing with, often what they tell us in Parliament is different from what they tell the IMF, for example, different from what they tell key stakeholders, sometimes different from what is transpiring on the ground. And so we decided to go out there on the ground. And you'll be seeing during this presentation pictures, videos, evidence-led discussions today, analysis today, that you can make your own judgment about whether the claims that have been made by the NPP government. Remember that we are doing this against the backdrop that President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo sometime last year scored his manifesto implementation at 72%, as you will recall. Then in February this year, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia at a town hall in Kumasi put out the manifesto performance of the NPP, where he scored their performance 78%. So we did not start the scoring and the analysis and the assessment. The NPP did. And we want to know today if they have been candid, if they have been factual with the good people of this country. So by way of background, Ghana, as we all know, we have held 7 episodes of successful, inclusive, credible, free, fair elections. And in the process, manifestos have assumed significance. They have become very, very important political documents. And manifestos are now influencing how many discerning Ghanaians cast their vote when we queue up on December 7 every 4 years to vote. This is done based on the constitutional imperatives. You do know that Article 55(3) of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana mandates political parties to present programs to the people and disseminate those programs to the understanding of the people and canvass votes. So all the political parties, at least the serious ones in this country, I shouldn't say all, because in election years all kinds of parties emerge, sometimes pursuing other people's agenda. They don't seem to have their own agenda. But at least the 2 leading political parties have followed this constitutional imperative, largely guided by Chapter 6 of the 1992 Constitution, the Directive Principles of State Policy, which spells out the vision of the framers of our Constitution, the founding fathers of this country, what they want Ghana to be like, how they want us to develop the kind of transformation that we should have, that you find in the Directive Principles of State Policy. So that has been the constitutional imperative. Then it will interest you to know that the 7 winning manifestos have had the following themes. In 1992, the NDC manifesto was the winning manifesto. And the theme for that manifesto was continuity and stability. Continuity and stability. I wouldn't tell you whether in that election I had attained the voter age or not. I wouldn't tell you that. In 1996, the NDC emerged victorious under the leadership of His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, our indefatigable founder of the National Democratic Congress, a man in whom we are all inspired and follow in his steps. He led us to a resounding victory in 1996 under the theme, always for people, always for development. This theme appears to be one of my favorite themes, always for people, always for development. In the year 2000, the NPP Manifesto, Agenda for Positive Change, was the winning manifesto. President J.A. Kufuor emerged. That was the first democratic transition. Ghana has had 3 peaceful democratic transitions. That was the first one. It was a watershed moment in our political history, and it was one that we were all proud of. Many were those who thought that strongman, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, may not be a Democrat. His opponents harangued him, called him all kinds of names, but he very, very gracefully handed over power to President J.A. Kufuor. The 2004 manifesto of the New Patriotic Party, which returned the party to power under the leadership of J.A. Kufuor, was under the theme Positive Change, Chapter 2. And Chapter 2 brought the NPP back to power in that election, which is famed for the victory announcement being made by the late Jake Obechebi Otanka Lamte ahead of the Electoral Commission. Our flag bearer, President John Dramani Mahama, has served notice that some of those tendencies must not be repeated this time. The NDC will not countenance that. In the year 2008, the NDC returned to power. As you do know, the NDC is the most successful political party in the history of Ghana, the entire political history of Ghana. And as a student of political science, I know that for a fact. Out of the 7 elections that have been held, the NDC has won 4. And we are poised to win our 5th victory on December 7th. So the 2008 manifesto ushered in Professor John Evans Atta-Mills, my mentor and discoverer, God bless his soul, under the theme, A Better Ghana, Investing in People, Jobs, and the Economy. That was the theme that brought the NDC to power. A Better Ghana, Investing in People, Jobs, and the Economy. And we all fondly remember Prof, how he used to say, A Better Ghana. He really was passionate about pursuing the development of our country. In the year 2012, the NDC returned to power. This time, Prof had handed over the baton to President John Dramani Mahama. He had to take leave to his maker, and he smiled down upon us, and President Mahama gallantly led us to a one-touch first-round victory. That manifesto was themed Advancing the Better Ghana Agenda, Jobs, Stability, and Development. So you can see President Mahama following the legacy of his mentor, friend, and boss, as he has always said himself. Then in 2016, the New Patriotic Party won the election with a manifesto, Change, an agenda for jobs, creating prosperity, and equal opportunity for all. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is this manifesto that we shall be thoroughly assessing today. We shall be analyzing this manifesto, whether the change that was promised, the agenda for jobs, creating prosperity and equal opportunity for all, whether that has been met or it has been opportunity for family and friends. We will get into the gravamen of the matters very, very soon. Now, I made an anecdotal observation, which is quite interesting. And this is a very interesting observation that really depicts the Ghanaian people and the Ghanaian electorate, how discerning, how very savvy the Ghanaian electorate are. Very, very smart Ghanaian electorate. You notice that in 1992, the winning manifesto had only 36 pages. Only 36 pages. The NPP presented 46 pages to Ghanaians, and yet Ghanaians chose the smaller page manifesto. I have found out that the majority of winning manifestos are the manifestos that have fewer pages. In 1996, the NDC again won with 35 pages. The NPP presented 46 pages and lost. In the year 2000, beat the NPP with voluminous manifestos. We lost. The NPP then decided that, look, they should also slow down. It's not about talking plenty that Ghanaians are looking for. Ghanaians are not people to be carried away with verbosity. I once heard an Akan adage that when you keep it crisp, I would recall the Asempiety, yes. That's what I heard. In 2004, the NPP won with 45-page manifesto. The NDC had 103 pages. We probably thought that the more we write, the more we shall convince Ghanaians. It didn't seem to work. Then in 2008 is the outlier. There are two outliers, 2008 and 2016. So this is it. We won with 97 pages as opposed to the NPP 64 pages. In 2012, we won with 76-page manifesto. The NPP had 116 pages in their manifesto. They could not win despite the high number of pages. In 2016, which is the second outlier, so of the 7 manifestos, an overwhelming 5 have been fewer pages winning. These are the only 2 manifestos. Now, this NPP manifesto of 2016 is the most verbose, is the most voluminous in the history of the Fourth Republic, 180 pages. And I'm sure that it will be interesting to know what the content is and how the implementation so far has been. So manifestos with fewer pages have won more elections. And I hope that as manifesto committees of the various parties are working now, this probably will offer some guide that for the Ghanaian electorate, it is not how much you write, how verbose you are, that necessarily wins their heart. So we shall now be entering into the real content of the NPP manifesto. But before we do that, I've been talking for a while. I want us to have an interlude as we refresh our memories. You do recall that John Kenneth Galbraith, the American economist who was advisor to J.F. Kennedy, is the one fit to have said that nothing is so admirable in politics as a short memory. There's a lot of short memory in politics, and we want to refresh our memories at this point.
Within 18 months of a new government of the NPP under my leadership, the face of our country, Ghana, is going to change.
You can engage in all the propaganda you want, but if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you will recall that I stated in 2014 that if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. That was true then, and it is true now. It is 100% correct. So if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But it is warped logic to jump from that to a conclusion that if there is depreciation in your currency, then the fundamentals must be weak. Do you understand the logic? It is very warped logic.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the reaction in this room, as we refresh our memory, is not different from the reaction from the faces of the Venerable Professor Jambafo and the Honorable Alan Chermantin. So these are the people we are dealing with. Sometimes even their own leading members cannot understand them. So we are now going to delve straight into the meat of the matter. What is the number of manifesto promises? You will recall that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, in his presentation, which is still available online at www.delivery.com, he claimed that the New Patriotic Party promised 388 manifestos. And the media is here, manifesto promises, sorry. 388 manifesto promises. The media is here, you can fact check that. 388. So we shall listen to our good friend again, and then...
In the first 2 years of an NPP administration, under this Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication program, where every constituency will get $1 million every year for rural and deprived communities. Under this program, there should be no village or community in Ghana after the first 2 years that would have a water problem or a toilet problem. There should be no village or community. Once we...
And I think at this point, it's worth reminding all of us that we are not less than 2 years under this government. We are doing something like 42 months. We are almost coming to the end of the 4-year tenure. And you do know what the state of our country.
The digital addressing system
is another interesting one.
For me, if I look at it and I'm biased, of course, it's going to provide us the most advanced addressing system in the world. Period. This is what we are about. This is what we are about to roll out. And it is more advanced, of course, than the United States or United Kingdom or Sweden or Germany, because they are stuck with old technology. We are leapfrogging, and we are going to new technology. We are going to GPS-based technology. So even if you are standing in the middle of the river Oti and you want your address, when we roll it out, you will know your address in the middle of the river
Oti. So I'm glad that we have all refreshed our memories and we know exactly the people we are dealing with. I could see the shock on the faces of the two former Deputy Ministers of Finance, the Honorable Kesela Tuposin, who worked in the UK for many years, and they shocked that the system in Ghana now is far better than the IT system in the UK. The Honorable Monakote, who also has an illustrious American background, is also shocked that under Dr. Bawumia's Ghana, we have beaten the Americans to it when it comes to IT deployment. But those are the nature of opponents we have. Now, this is a very important slide as we get very closer into the content, into the detailed content analysis. Please take note of this slide. It's very, very crucial. It summarizes this presentation. They are very important numbers. The NDC, I'm glad to announce today that the NDC, after a thorough content analysis of the NPP manifesto, we have counted 631 manifesto promises, 631, as against the 388 which Dr. Bawumia put out. So if you have a government that cannot even be truthful about its promises, its fidelity to the social contract it has with the people cannot even be reliable you can't trust them to even remember their own promises to us, then we know that we are really in trouble. So we've counted 631. And let me indicate that unlike what Dr. Baumia did, which is available online, where they just list the 388 promises, we have gone beyond that. We have provided a detailed description of where you find the manifesto promise. So every manifesto promise, we provide the page number. Dr. Baumia did not do that. We have done that. We provide the page number. So we list promise number 1, this is the promise, and this is the page number where you find the promise. And at this point, let me announce that this presentation has been uploaded at www.nppfailedpromises.com. nppfailedpromises.com. And we are inviting all of you, to fact check, follow us. We have nothing to hide at all. Ours is a very evidence-based presentation. We are only interested in the facts and nothing more. So 631 promises, not 388. We also discovered that out of this 388, though it's lowered by some 39%, they can't either remember, or they are being disingenuous or dishonest, whichever way, a very, very bad example of how any political party should treat the people. We also discovered that apparently the Akufo-Addo government smuggled in 8 promises when they were accounting to us in February. 8 promises that were not in the manifesto. As they were struggling, looking for achievements, they combed around some ministries and saw some things that have happened, and then they quickly smuggled it in. We fished it out. And during this presentation, we will be revealing to you what 8 smuggled promises are. We've combed the entire manifesto. They are not in the manifesto. Then there are also another 8 group, the notorious group, called the Deceptive Promises Group. And those are promises that are deceptive, very, very flawed. Promises that should not have been made. I can give you an example outrightly. In the manifesto, they said they will end Dumso. At the time, Dumso had long been ended, and they themselves were saying that don't give President Mahama credit for ending Dumso, because he was there when it started, so don't give him credit. And yet in their manifesto, and there are a number of promises like that, 8 of them we've counted. So this number, 235, that is the total number of promises that the NPP government just omitted. They just omitted totally, 235, a whopping 235. Clearly a government that cannot be trusted. 235 promises omitted. So we have done the sectoral analysis just to show you how thorough we have been, because we know that the people we are dealing with, they will just want to engage in needless nitpicking and all of that. So we've done very thorough analysis, sector by sector, as contained in the manifesto. In the agriculture sector, and this will be alphabetical, the total number of promises that we have counted is 74 promises. The Akufo-Addo government account for only 44. Only 44. They smuggled into culture sector. Chieftaincy and culture, 7 promises were made. Only 5 have been accounted for so far. In the economy, 45 promises. Only 30 have been accounted for. They smuggled in 1 and then omitted 14 promises. In the education subsector, they promised 35 promises were made. 36 accounted for, 2 smuggled out. In the energy subsector, 45 promises were made, 36 accounted for, 2 smuggled, 7 promises missing, unaccounted for. The government is either unaware of the promise or they hope that you would forget and we all move on. Foreign affairs, 13 promises, only 10 accounted for, 3 missing. Under governance, 18 manifesto promises, that one they came close to some reality. 17 accounted for, 1 promise missing. Growing together, there's a section in the manifesto called Growing Together. They account for only 8 out of the 25 promises that we have counted under that section. So 17 promises are omitted. Health, 41 manifesto promises made, 17 accounted for, as many as 24. So can you imagine if President John Dramani Mahama had not made the investments he made in the health sector? So you can see how come everybody, and since today we are all remembering the high life great Nana Tufo, famed for his song Meyere Dada Sambe Warime. That's what Ghanaians are saying, and it's because, but for the investment that have been made in the health sector, you would really have been in a bad situation. And I can understand how come the Green Book is now the most sought after material in the country now. So as many as 24 promises in the health sector, totally forgotten. In the infrastructure sector, 82 promises were made. Only 45 was accounted for by the Akufo-Addo government, and 37 have been omitted. There are more sectors. Lands and natural resources, 39 manifesto promises, 19 accounted for, as many as 20 have not been accounted for. The Akufo-Addo government wants you to forget, but we are not going to forget. Local government, 12 promises, 7 have been accounted for, only 7. And when I say accounted for, it doesn't mean they have delivered on them. For the avoidance of doubt, it doesn't mean they have delivered. We will go into deeper analysis to know whether what they have accounted for, they delivered or not, whether they have fulfilled that promise or not. So please, this one we are just looking at the promises. Don't think that, okay, maybe accounted for means no. You will be shocked at what you will find out soon. Under security, 36 promises made, only 23 accounted for, not delivered, accounted for. What they remember? Only 23. They smuggled in 1, so 12 unaccounted for. Social development, 39 manifesto promises, 20 promises accounted for. Smuggled in 2, 17 unaccounted for. They hope that we shall all forget, but we will not forget. Tourism, culture, and creative arts, 22 manifesto promises. They account for only 13. They have omitted 9. Trade and industry, 58 promises we have counted. And all these 58 promises, we provide you with page numbers so you can carry out your independent verification. We are not just making claims. 38 accounted for, 20 have not been accounted for. The government will wish we forget, but we are not forgetting. Youth and sports, 20 manifesto promises, 14 accounted for, 6 have not been accounted for. The overall summary, therefore, is that 631 promises in the NPP manifesto. We have provided page numbers to every one of them. And you will notice as we go along this presentation that every one of them, there is a page number. So we are not in the business of smuggling promises as they did. So when you compare the 631 to 388, and you take out the smuggled promises, you notice that 235 promises, as many as 235. If you look at the earlier manifestos, and we did content analysis of the earlier manifestos, there were some manifestos that did not even have up to 235 promises. You know, this is a huge number, 235 promises. Even one promise to the Ghanaian people is a very, very important one. It's a sacred sacred duty that it behoves on you to deliver on. So, ladies and gentlemen, the overall summary will shock you. It will shock you. Now, this is where we talk about the actual delivery. Actual delivery. So we have moved from what the promises they remember and hope that we will, forget the rest. Now we are talking about actual delivery. So this is the overall summary, the sectorial analysis. We have discovered, ladies and gentlemen, that the 631 promises that we listed, after thorough analysis, combing through documents, what they have told us in Parliament, either through the budget, either through the state of the message on the state of the nation, either through question time in Parliament, or at the committees when we have summoned ministers to appear before us to answer to their mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, it will shock you to realize that only 86 out of these 631 promises have been delivered. So the percentage achieved is 14%. 14%, not 78%. And we shall prove it. In a few minutes, you will know that we are not joking at all. Agriculture, out of the 74 promises I told you earlier, only 13 have been delivered. And in subsequent slides, we shall give you a detailed breakdown. We are not just coming to give you numbers, do some quantitative analysis and leave here. No. We will give you the details. The details. Only 18% in terms of the percentage achieved in the agri sector. Chieftaincy and culture. Chieftaincy and culture. My own good uncle from the Volta region, if we were in another jurisdiction, he will be resigning this afternoon. The 7 promises they made, zero achieved at chieftaincy. And there are a number of 0 achieving ministries. And I wonder what the ministers, their deputies, are doing. Economy, 45 promises, only 12 have been delivered. So 27 percentage point achievement. Under education, 38 promises, only 7 delivered, 18%. Energy, 45 to 8, only 8 out of the 45 promises delivered, so 18%. Foreign affairs, you have a situation where the 30 promises made, 5 delivered, so 38%. That's the best performing ministry. And it's not because I'm a ranking member in that sector. You do know that I have not been one of their best friends. Under governance, 18 promises made, only 2 delivered, 11% not delivered. Growing together, 25 promises made, only 6 delivered. And we have been very generous, as you notice. When we get into the detail, you'll be wondering why we even gave them some deliveries, because they are not even there. They've not even done 15%. But we were quite charitable because we didn't want to be too hard on people who are really just not performing. They're so abysmal that you just have to try and be considerate. The health sector, 41 promises, only 3 delivered. So only 7 percentage point achievement. If you look at the infrastructure sector, 82 promises, 7 delivered, so only 9% in terms of actual delivery. Lands and natural resources, only 1 delivered out of the 39 promises, 3%. Local government, no, that's another 0 performing ministry. Local government, 0%. We struggle so hard to find just one thing that we could give my own good auntie Hajia Alima, but hard as we tried, she could not leave the 0 percentage point. Science and technology, Professor Frimpong Boateng, who has still not found his excavators, delivered only one promise out of the 17. And no country can really develop without science and technology. That's very, very important, science and technology. And yet, 17% delivery. Social development, the 39 promises, only 7 delivered, so 18%. Tourism, culture, and creative arts, 22 promises, only 2 delivered, so 9%. Trade and industry, 58 promises, only 6 delivered, 10%. Youth and sports, no wonder. 20 promises delivered, 20 promises made. The delivery is 0%. That's the third. There are 3 0% ministries. That's the third one. Youth and sports. No wonder there's so much agitation amongst the young people. Sports is in total disaster in our country at the moment. 0%. So the overall summary, only 86 of their promises out of the 631 have been delivered. 14% is the cumulative average. 14%, ladies and gentlemen. Only 14% achieved. And I'm not aware of any academic institution, having served as Deputy Minister of Education, where you can escape the dreaded F grade, which is fail, with 14%. With 14%. I'm not aware. So the NDC scorecard is that we contend very strongly that the 78% performance put out by the Akufo-Addo government is nothing but a scam. The actual delivery is 14%, which is an F. So this is a very important slide that you want to take note of. When we go on in the details, you will see how horrendous the performance of this government has been. No wonder on social media you notice that the hashtag Kick Nana Out has been trending for a very, very long time. That hashtag continues to trend on social media. Kick Nana Out. When we concluded this work, we then understood. We then saw how come there's so much disillusionment. How come people are so despondent? And you see, it is not our wish. We in the NDC really will wish, because Ghana is the only country we have, we will wish that our opponents perform when they are in government, so that we will be challenged to think harder and perform better when we get the opportunity. So it becomes a positive competition to the top, but not a competition to the bottom. And when this country, you are given 4 good years of the destiny of the people, and all you can do is 14%. That's all you can do. 14%.
Lie your way
and even
by understating the number of promises that you make. And there's the level of intellectual dishonesty you will be finding out as we go on with this presentation. So kindly remember those important figures. 14% delivery, overall delivery. Now we come to the detailed sectoral analysis. Very detailed sectoral analysis. But I have been speaking for a while. So let's hear from the Honorable Agric Minister, who is touted by the NPP as the best Agric Minister this country has ever had. Let's hear it.
Only 4 years ago, a bunch of plantain Accra, you have to spend 40 Ghana cedis. Now 4 cities, and I repeat, 3, 4, 5 cities, you can get a bunch of plantain. It shows you clearly that we have come and reduced prices of food even in the major cities like Accra, where if because of the substantial reduction in prices in the markets, most families who could not afford 1 meal a day can now afford 3 meals a day because food is so cheap.
Oh, I am a question. It's a month of April. By May, June, never for an hour. It is said about any bond, I was so crazy. You need to have my Boga from San. I just said we go and say, Ayapuna, 11 cities, by the matter in cities. By this, I guess September. Abia statement by the year, 3 for 20.
Last year, number dear a boo and a cry, drone, Cassia, a boo 20 Ghana, 30 Ghana. As a sea, body of my head, I am to some 40 Ghana, to the drug Cassia in age 45. A son, a boo, a 10 city.
10 your column, yes, sir.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, you heard the Agric Minister, you heard the industry people, and I told you that this is an exercise that really is the people's exercise. We've gone to the ground, we are listening to those who these policies affect. Manifestos are about livelihoods, it's about the people. So you have to hear from the people. It's not what the politicians are saying. And you heard what the market women who really hold this economy, what they had to say about the Agric Minister. So in the Agric sector, 74 promises made. Only 13 promises out of the 74 promises have been delivered. That gives you a percentage delivery of 18%. So 82% of the promises in the Agric sector have not been met. And you shouldn't be surprised that you see the market woman saying that the Agric Minister is totally out of touch. So this is what we have done. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to the NDC's work. We are not just here to huff and puff, just blow hot air. No, it's an empirical exercise. We respect for the data. So you notice from the left side, we list the promises. We do this all the way from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to the 631st promise. And then please come to this section. This column is very important. We provide the page numbers. Every single promise, we provide the page numbers. I told you that we've uploaded this presentation at www.nppfailedpromises.com. You can check. We have also uploaded the NPP Manifesto itself, the soft copy. So you have the two presentations. You can compare and contrast at the website now. All of you here will receive a pack from us, hard copy of the presentation. You will also have the NPP Manifesto, so you can do your own comparison. The media, please fact check us. We have nothing to hide. So the status of every promise is also provided, ladies and gentlemen. We provide every status, so you can see for yourself. Let's take the Agric sector content by content. Promise 1, the NPP will modernize agriculture. The status is failed. Agriculture has not been modernized. Or read all the reports. Read all the reports, World Bank reports. We live in Ghana. I come from an agriculture-led constituency. It's what it is. Number 2, the NPP will improve agricultural production efficiency. Failed. NPP will achieve food security. Failed. Not too long ago, we were discussing in Parliament why we should be importing maize. The NPP will improve profitability for farmers. Failed. Significantly increase agricultural productivity. Failed. The NPP will pursue a value addition strategy. Failed. We are still waiting for that strategy. We've been asking in Parliament. Let's have the strategy. Bring the policy. Nothing has been brought. The NPP will rapidly ramp up agro-processing. It's failed. Agro-processing is hinged on one district, one factory. And you know that just remains a slogan. Developing new stable markets for our products. Failed. You see that promise at 49. District assemblies and traditional authorities will be assigned specific roles in agricultural development. Just to cross-check, this morning I called my chiefs to find out, have you been assigned your specific role in the agricultural development policy of the government? They are still waiting for a phone call, or however that will be done. So that's also failed. The NPP will adopt policies specifically targeted at supporting women in agriculture. I'm happy that many, many women are here. I know some of you are in agriculture, you are entrepreneurs. It's failed. And what is interesting, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you go through Dr. Baumier's presentation, he himself does not admit that these promises have been delivered, except that what he does is to create a very strange concept known as delivering. So when they haven't delivered, they say, oh, we are delivering, whatever that means. You have been delivering for 42 months and over. We just have some 5 months to go, and you say that you are delivering. We will later on denounce and debunk that strange delivering theory very soon. Promise number 11, the NPP will ensure that there are improved seed and fertilizers. We did some work on that, and our trade committee said that they've done some work, so we should give it to them. So that is delivered. Ensure that farming inputs are readily available within farming communities at affordable prices. Failed. Support private certified seed growers to increase substantially the food supply of improved seeds to farmers. That also, we scored them delivered. The other delivered we scored them is that we will begin immediate discussions with the government of Burkina Faso for a more controlled spillage of the dam to prevent the flooding that takes place. That one was just a phone call, so it's easy to do. We did our checks. Burkina Faso has been called, so we delivered. We scored that, delivered that one. But apart from that, everything else is failed. Providing a mechanism to capture water released by the annual spillage at the Bagri Dam failed. Focusing on developing irrigation schemes in the Afram Plains and the Northern Savannah failed. Not a single irrigation scheme. As a matter of urgency, listen to their own words, as a matter of urgency, promise number 16, as a matter of urgency, rehabilitating existing public irrigation schemes, including the abandoned via irrigation scheme. As a matter of urgency, and yet they put this promise under delivery, that we will deliver later. Meanwhile, more than 42 months. It is the folks on the streets who say that agrobeso are not every anapa. These are a lot of the things we hear from our folks on the streets. And you can't tell us after 42 months, when you yourself use the word as a matter of urgency, just one, the irrigation process, matter of urgency. Nothing has been done in that regard. Here, before I move on from this slide, promise number 20, facilitating the provision of community-owned and managed small-scale irrigation facilities across the country, especially in northern Ghana, through the policy of one village, one dam. Ladies and gentlemen, not too long ago, the party went on a visitation tour, an evidence-based press conference was held. You saw our communications officer, the indefatigable Samir Jenfi, and his team, Akugan and others. I saw our colleague, the Mion MP, who facilitated their entry into the constituency. They held a press conference with journalists. I'm sure some of you journalists here were with them in the north. You were all in the dugout. Whether it's a dugout or a pond, it is not clear. Clearly, it's not a dam. Clearly, it's not a dam. Very failed promise. So, ladies and gentlemen, many promises in the agri sector. I can go on and on and on. Another fantastic promise, the agri sector, promise number 56. They said, we will restore the Kole Lagoon, including the reintroduction of its fish stock. Kole Lagoon. I'm sure some of you drove here from the Kole Lagoon. And I decided to pay a visit to the Kole Lagoon myself. And no fish that can survive there. No fish. So, ladies and gentlemen, promise number 20. What we also do, after we have provided the list of and this is very important information, after we provided the list in the sector of promises, giving you the page numbers, and whether it's been delivered or not, we also do a snapshot, what we call a snapshot, where we take selected promises and provide you with detailed information, sometimes supporting documents, so that you can verify. You can join us to know how come we came to the conclusion that it has not been delivered. So sometimes World Bank documents, IMF documents, budget statements, their own statements, pronouncements, so we provide them. So the one village, one dam promise, it's interesting to read this. The Vice President says that they will do 570 of the promises of the dams by the end of 2018. That does not happen. Then you have the sector minister mention 560 in Parliament. That does not happen. Then you have the person in charge, Madam Kunedu, also mentioning different. So comedy of contradictions and conflicting claims that point to the fact that that promise has not been delivered. And so these are pictures of the famous dams. One village, one dam. This is how they look like now. and I don't think you will tell me that this is a dam. I mean, this is not a dam. I mean, they themselves in their manifesto said that the one village, one dam is for all season farming to take place. So that even during the dry season, they didn't tell us that during the dry season, the dams will become a place where Sami Jemfi and his friends can take a walk and hold press conferences and all of that. You remember this famous press conference. They could all take a walk there, touch the floor. I mean, strange stuff. Then the cocoa sector, promise number 35, as part of the snapshot that we do for every sector. Promise number 35. The NPP's objective over the next 4 years is to restore production to over 1 million metric tons per annum. You find that promise at page 53. Clearly, the NPP by this promise was trying to achieve the NDC record. Cocoa production record is with the NDC. We are the only party that has achieved the 1 million metric tons mark, which we should all be proud of. So they're trying to achieve that. 2016, 2017, President Mahama did so well to get close to the Professor Mills record of 1 million. He did 969,000. Then they came to power, and our good friend, the Agri Minister, and President Akufo-Addo, all they to a decline by 12%, 904,000 for the 2017-2018 crop season. 2018-2019 crop season, it went down further by minus 10.3%. to 811,025 metric tons. So this is what we do. When we give you the detailed analysis, we even go beyond to tell you why this has not been done. And we provide a thought. This is the budget statement. The budget statement, government's own document, government's own budget statement for the agri sector. If you take the budget, do take all the 4 budgets, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 budget, and you see these figures in there. This is the Kole Lagoon as yesterday. Clearly, it has not been restored, and no fish stock can survive in this Kole Lagoon. Chieftaincy and religious affairs. This is a ministry that scores 0%, so there's not much to do here. And the promises were not difficult promises, ladies and gentlemen. Promise 75, ensure the prompt payment of royalties due chiefs, queen mothers, and traditional councils. Not a difficult one. Failed. Provide government support to the institution of in the performance of their duties, their evolution, and further modernization. Failed, according to our checks. Support the National House of Chiefs to codify and systematize traditional laws and culture. Failed. And what is even worrying, after failing to deliver to the National House of Chiefs, what we have been seeing now and hearing now are rather insults. They are communicators raining insult on the National House of Chiefs. Our revered chiefs should be respected, and that must stop. You cannot do that. Foster a collaboration of government agencies and traditional leaders that will center on the protection of water bodies and conservation of the environment. Forge a new and formal collaboration between chiefs, queen mothers, and traditional authorities with NADMO, so that relief assistance can be better managed in our local communities during natural disasters and other emergencies. Failed. We checked with the chiefs, and they are not enthused at all. The only thing we remember is that the last time the vice president led the NADMO team, he went distributing expired food relief items. So, I mean, let's come to the economy. Let's leave the 0% performing ministry, and let's listen to President Akufo on the economy.
$1, 1 CD. In the time of Mills and Mahama, 2 CDs, $1. If I was them, I would say to the people of Ghana, I'm sorry. We are sorry for the poor work we have done. We're going to go and think about ourselves. But that is not the people we're dealing with. The fruits of office, the money under the table has has become sweet for them, so they're determined to stay. Are we going to allow that to happen? Are we going to allow that to happen? In Kufuor's time, one of the people who advised and helped him develop a strong CD was my running mate, Muhammadu Bawumia. Then he was deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. It's one of the reasons I brought him to come and join me, that we will work on the CD and create again a strong CD that will be able to allow us to develop our economy and allow our freedoms and our people to be able to develop. We have told the world.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's really what we're promised on the economy. We're told that there's this economic messiah who had a magic wand, and the exchange rate performance of $1, 2 CD was that bad. What's the exchange rate today? 6 CD. So, the man with the magic wand, where is he? So, the 45 promises, only 12 promises have been delivered. So we score the NPP 27%, 73% not delivered on the economy. And you have the details that we have provided. The economy pages are from pages 13 all the way down to about page 20. That was the focus on the economic subsector. And ladies and gentlemen, you would realize that there are a lot of failed promises here, just like in many sectors. Take the first economic promise, growing the economy and creating wealth and prosperity for the vast majority of Ghanaians through private sector empowerment. Failed. We spoke to a lot of people in the business sector. They say that now, I mean, it's Kokofu football. It's all family and friends. That's what's going on. And the few businesses they came to meet, they are destroying them. They are struggling. And you all know what has happened to the financial sector of this country. And as they are doing that, check how a few businesses, a certain economic empire is being created for a clannish system to use their own chairman. You remember that fight at GMPC, that revealing letter that was authored by Freddie Blay, the chairman of the NPP, accusing them of some clannish system, very tight-knit. And you heard recently the Works and Housing Minister defended that. Why? I mean, the Achim Mafia, so what? We are deserving. You take the Achims out and there's no history for Ghana. Totally condemnable. Totally condemnable. But it tells you their mindset. And that's why this economy is struggling. Opportunities are just for a few people. Extremely few people. It's a close-knit. Just the Achim. I'm told even Achim is not all Achim. Some of my Achim friends have told me that, hey, please, watch it. It's just a chedi thing. Small Akufu, Ofuriata, Kabah. And that's it. Take the 83rd promise. We will reduce the cost of doing business. Reduce the cost of doing business. And here, in a snapshot, you see several credible reports. The World Bank Ease of Doing Business report, for example. Ghana dropped 12 places. So the cost of doing business, empirical data suggests that we are not doing well at all. We will maintain fiscal discipline. That has not happened. And I'm glad that there will be a Q&A. We have the finance gurus here who will join us to take your questions. Reduce government borrowing. Reduce government borrowing. Failed is the status. You know what has happened. You know what has happened. Taking our public debt from 120 billion to over 230 billion as we speak. We'll provide a snapshot and give you the details. Bank of Ghana's own, and I don't think they dispute those figures. So they have not reduced government borrowing. And you know that this continuous thing the Vice President does in his 388 infamous presentation, he changes this promise. in that 388 presentation and says, we promise we will reduce the rate of government borrowing. Rate of government borrowing. The intellectual dishonesty is mind-boggling. Reduce interest rates to spur private sector investment. We give them that because there was some, the data shows, if you look at the Bank of Ghana NDC reports, some token reduction, which really is not reflecting when you read that same report and you look at real interest rate. But that's why I tell you that we've been quite generous and charitable in this exercise. So where the data says give it to them, even if it's 1%, we give it to them. We don't challenge that. But even with that generosity, look at this slide. Only one promise delivered. Everything. Build the most business-friendly and people-friendly economy in Africa, which will create jobs and prosperity for all Ghanaians. It's become massive job losses, massive layoffs. We will ensure that growth is socially diversified. It's not happening. To achieve double-digit GDP growth annually for the next 4 years. Double-digit GDP growth. Fail is what they score. You know that they haven't achieved that. So, on and on, the economy slides. It's terrible. Look at promise number 94. Our government will secure the peace and stability of our nation. That has not happened. NPP will implement policies to invest in rural, coastal, zongo, and inner city communities. All the pledges they made, financial pledges in those sectors. When we check in Parliament, the funds are not being released. So it's not been achieved. Restore macroeconomic stability. Shift the focus of economic management from taxation to production. We will soon show you a slide that has 11 different taxes that they have introduced. So it's all been failure galore. There will be specific targets for the reduction of government borrowing and debt. Failed. That hasn't happened. So you notice that many promises in the economic subsector, reducing the corporate tax rate from 25% to 20%. 4 years on, they presented all their budgets. President Akufo-Addo has presented his last budget. We just left with the mid-year review, which normally does not really touch on major shifts. So you can say that this promise has not been delivered. So you notice that the special import levy that has been delivered, we give them that. Abolishing the 17.5% VAT on imported medicines not procured. Our checks indicate that they have delivered on that, so we give it to them. Just to show you that this is an objective exercise. We are being very fair where we must give it to them. Abolish the 17.5% VAT on financial services. That's delivered per our checks. Abolishing the 5% VAT on real estate sales. Our checks indicate that has been delivered, so we give it to them. But apart from that, you notice that all the other matters, increased tax compliance, reduced government expenditure. You know that government expenditure has gone up in unprecedented levels. Cost of travels alone at the presidency, you recall that it created such a stir last year. So the snapshot on the economy will encourage you when you get your slides, those of you who are reviewing our website. It makes for interesting reading. We provide you with documentation and links to the various sources that help us come to the conclusion that we have come to. So for the sake of time, Ghana drops 4 places in ease of doing business. So these reports, I'm glad that I see some financial journalists here. They can confirm that these are matters. Cost of doing business has gone up. These are press statements that the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications put out, that with the introduction of the 50% increase in the communication service tax, they have no choice but to increase the cost of data, the cost of telephony. It's all gone up. Funmill Ghana Limited also issued a statement that, look, the cost of doing business has become unbearable. So they have also had to increase their products, the very popular Funmill products. Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. And all of this, the breweries, all the breweries issued statements not too long ago that, look, the cost of doing business in Ghana has become very, very unbearable. So we have attached all these press statements so that you can tell from yourself, tell for yourself whether is the NDC trying to just, portray a picture that does not exist. You can check for yourself. These are industry players who are telling you what is happening. Fiscal discipline as well, we provide you with the data. The NDC's contention, very strongly, is that the energy sector debt, the financial bailout, must be part of. We agree with every objective economist, including those in the IMF and the World Bank, who say that that must be part of our fiscal situation. It should not be treated as under the table, just so as we massage the figures. Massaging figures does not, you only create a false sense of security. So we provide you with all the data on that as well, including the government's own documents to the IMF, which confirms our position. When they come to Parliament, they tell us something different. But when they are writing to the IMF, it's a different set of figures is presented. And you see, people must have trust in their leaders. That's why poll after poll, people are getting quite suspicious, whether the politicians mean well, whether they are being truthful. And it's affecting even the management of COVID. I'm happy that the COVID national team is here, the NDC COVID advisory team is here. When you keep massaging figures and all of that, people lose confidence, and it doesn't help. It will affect every sector. So I'm hoping that the government will stop these things. Reduce government borrowing, we also provide the data there. They met the public debt at 120 billion, as I've said earlier. It's now 236.1 billion Ghana cedis. And they are still borrowing. Every week we go to Parliament, there's one facility or the other. And when they are borrowing, they don't want to pay. Our ranking member of the Finance Committee had flagged a number of issues. Our debtors are demanding their monies, and we are defaulting on paying our loans. That is worrying. You are beginning to default, and yet the borrowing binge continues. You are totally unhinged, just borrowing galore. That certainly is worrying. So that's debt stock. My journal line confirming the figure of 236.1 billion. Certainly they took that from the Bank of Ghana report, which we have provided.
About our oil money. Let's forget about gold. Just put all of those resources that they've had aside. I just want to focus on one statistic. How much money have they borrowed since they've been in office these last 7 years? When they came in, Ghana's debt was 9.5 billion Ghana cedis. Today, after 7 years, they've increased it from 9.5 billion, that is from independence to 2008. Today, they've increased it to 90 billion Ghana cedis. This is like 10 times what has happened. Now, I sat down the other day and I said, okay, how much is this additional borrowing in dollar terms? In dollar terms, they met a debt of about $8 billion in 2009 again. $8 billion from independence to 2009. They have added, as of today, they borrowed up to a value of $34 billion. Now, by the end of this year, we are projecting that borrowing will reach $40 billion. As I said, they are going to challenge me, and I'm ready for that. And I'll explain to them. Now, you think about it. If you have $40 billion at your disposal over a 7-year period, just $40 billion, what have they done with all this money? Forget about the cocoa, oil, gold, and taxes. I'm just talking about the borrowing. What have they done with all that money? If you take all the NDC signature projects, they'll say cycle, interchange, circle line, this hospital, they mention them in the budget. If you add all of that, you are talking of around $3.5 billion. All of that, the hospitals, the roads that we are talking about, including the are taking that 40 billion and even taking 20 billion of that and giving each region, including the Volta region, $2 billion, you would have seen the major transformation that would happen. Because all...
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, the same logic applies. So he was concerned what we did with our 40 billion. Despite seeing everything, the cycle interchange, the Kaswa interchange, the Tamale airport, the Kotoka Terminal 3 project, the whole airport, the Sofola interchange, the KJTR market, the Fufusu Solar Road, the Eastern Corridor Road from the Dodi Pepesu Strait. Despite seeing all of that, the Rich Hospital, the polyclinics that were rolled out all over, the University of Ghana Medical Center, despite all of that, still was asking, what have they done with their 40 billion? That question is relevant today. There are 236 billion. What have they done with it? I mean, see how they are struggling. So because they don't have similar JM legacy projects to show, the president must declare the Green Book a fantasy book, and see how they are struggling. I mean, poor Pius is the one being attacked, but it's not his fault. I mean, when you are sent out there to defend a lie that the boss has put out, really, do you blame the poor Pius? You know, so that's Ghana's debt stock position, 120.3 billion, 2017 increased to 142.6 billion. By 2018, it had increased to 173.1 billion, all the way to March, 236.9 billion. So Ghana's public debt has the increase is about 96%, and they've almost doubled our entire public debt. That's the fact, almost doubled. And this is data from the Bank of Ghana. So that same question applies. What have you done with all this money you borrowed? Because unlike President Mahama, we don't see your cycle interchange. We don't see your Kaswa interchange. We don't see your University of Ghana Medical Center. We don't see your Rich Hospital. We don't see your whole airport. We don't see your Tamale airport. We don't see the Kumasi airport. We don't see the E-blocks that President Mahama was constructing. Next to Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the Mills Mahama administration will compare very, very favorably. We are not seeing that. So relevant question then, relevant today. What have they done with all the money borrowed? So there are many snapshots at the economy. I told you earlier that when they claim they will move this economy from taxation to production, it has rather ended in tears with more taxes. They have introduced even more killer taxes. I told you 11 of them, according to Finance Committee in Parliament. 5% VAT disguised as NHIL and Get Fund levies. 3% VAT flat rate, 27% increase in ESLA, 50% increase in communication service tax, whose deductions government has forced the telcos to hike. The luxury car tax, you remember that they only took it out when President Mahama said that when he is sworn in, it will be one of the first things he will do. Then they hurriedly took it out. Retention of 2% component of special import levy, extension of 5% national fiscal stabilization, despite the sunset clause, which makes it a new tax. Failure to reduce the corporate tax from 25% to 20%. So, in the economy, they have not kept faith with the Ghanaian people. And
when I look at the economic management team, it is quite clearly a fantastic team. Professor Jan Bafo, Dr. Akutose, Dr. Afriye Akutu, Honorable Alan Chiramanting, Boachi Ejaku, Ken Oforiata, Senior Minister Yao Osafo Mafu. What a solid team.
What has the solid team delivered? Half and puff, high on rap and names, big names. But when it comes to actual delivery, they are found wanting. The education subsector is next. The failure is so high. Only 7 out of the 38 promises have been delivered. And 18% delivery is a scorecard, and we provide the details. So free education has been delivered, we give them that, even though what they put in the manifesto is not what they delivered. They said they will implement it. They did not believe in progressive free education, which we had rolled out. But eventually they implemented progressive. First years first, second years, then third years. But no worries, we'll give it to them. So we did. But raise quality of education. We provided a snapshot, several reports that show that quality of education is dwindling. Our children in public schools are struggling to read. Work with universities to raise their standards to the ranks of the best amongst their peers in Africa. And yet you see what they are doing as we speak. There's turmoil in the universities. The public university bill, the most obnoxious bill. And I salute President Mahama for stating clearly that is one of the laws you repeal if they go ahead with their hard-headedness and implement the public university bill. I mean, I've worked in that sector. There's nothing wrong. Our universities are one of the most respected institutions. The vice chancellors do such a great job. Just because you couldn't have your way at KNUST, because the chancellor, for himself, put his foot down. You couldn't have your way, so you now want to arrogate powers to yourself, to undermine academic freedom, to undermine the autonomy of our institutions. And it is really sad. And you're seeing that in all sectors. Check all the independent reports. They are clamping down on the media. They are going after the Auditor General. I mean, they want this country to be a police state where they are in total control. They control everything. We cannot build a democratic society that way. And I get deeply, deeply disgusted at what is going on, the abuse of power. They should leave our public universities alone. Leave academic freedom, leave the autonomy of our institutions. So many promises in the education subsector because of time, but you notice that we have listed all of them. They've all been listed in very detailed. Many of you do not know. I remember during the lockdown, there was a lot of debate. You were appealing and begging the president to reduce the cost of data, communication data. Many of you didn't know that at page 111 of the NPP Manifesto, promise number 155, the NPP had promised, quote, NPP will, in collaboration with the private sector, provide free Wi-Fi coverage for senior secondary and tertiary institutions nationwide, dedicated to learning, administration, and enhancing the capacity to do research. Free Wi-Fi, not reduced cost, free. And can you imagine, even this, the vice president says, oh, delivery. Probably they'll deliver it midnight of 6 January after they have been kicked out after the election. So, I mean, so many promises in the education sector, mechanisms to put in place to ensure salaries of newly trained teachers are paid promptly. The technical universities will be assisted to refocus on technical education and will be at the forefront of NPP, one district, one factory. I mean, there are no one district, one factory. Technical universities have nothing to do in that regard. They have done some work with teacher trainee allowance, so we give them that. We don't take that away from them. We give them that in the education subsector. And we provide the snapshots also. The views of teachers will be sought on education policy innovation implementation. That's promise 141 at page 108. That is what they promised. Unfortunately, they have rather been hounding teachers. You know what has happened to teachers who have just raised concern about the poor implementation of free SHS. What double track is doing, the lack of facilities. You raise your voice, they clamp down on you, descend heavily, they dismiss you. So they are not fulfilling the promise. So many teachers, now a culture of silence. They've cowed our teachers. Even in this COVID management, listen to NAGRAT, listen to CCT, listen to NAT. They are worried about their lives. They say, look, just test us before you reopen the schools. Test us, test the non-teaching staff, test students, so that before you go and lock us up in this environment. All the experts have said that, look, the teacher unions are making legitimate concern. Dr. Wapia is here. He said that. President Mahama has said that. Just test it. And we are receiving, as former Deputy Minister for Education, receiving so many PTA meetings, calls. Parents are truly worried. Because look at the numbers, the rise in cases. Our case count is going up. We are approaching the 12,000 mark. Teachers are genuinely worried. And they are partners in development. When we were at the ministry, we work with them. Every month, we hold a stakeholders meeting with the unions. That has been abandoned. They are not engaging stakeholders. They will not listen to them. And yet, from today, schools are supposed to be reopening. They say they are easing restrictions, and no testing is going on. How many of us really will have the confidence to send our children to school under such an arrangement? So, this promise is not being kept. We're treating stakeholder concerns with contempt. That's how you govern. So, I can go on and on in the education subsector, the energy, petroleum, and power subsector. We've also done detailed analysis of that sector. And not too long ago, our respected member of the committee and former deputy minister of the sector presented you a detailed account of the sector. So I do not intend to rehash the matters that he raised. The energy sector scores a paltry 18%. Only 18% of promises have been delivered, despite all the work that was done by Honorable Boa and the team, Honorable John Jinapor, pursuing President Mahama's vision, providing the 10 Sankofa fields. They've had, if you look at the record, and John Jinapor proved that the last time, they have had more resources than any government in their history. Combine all the governments, they've had more resources from the oil and gas sector, and yet nothing to show for it. And read the PIAC reports. The PIAC report. PIAC is reporting hundreds of millions of dollars that remain missing, that cannot be found. Our oil funds, they cannot even account for it. Read the PIAC reports that are submitted to Parliament, and you'll be very, very troubled what is happening to our oil resources. So we provide the details, as we do for all the other sectors in the energy sector, and you see the scorecard. But there's an interesting problem in the energy sector that many of you may not have averted your minds to. Page 42, promise number 188. They promised to build solar parks in the northern part of the country. To achieve this, we will provide investment tax credits to owners of commercial, industrial, and utility scale solar photovoltaic PV systems to take a one-time tax credit of qualified installed costs. So they said they will build solar parks. Not one. I think they even forgot. Interestingly, the Vice President does not even remember this promise. It's not in their 388 list of promises. So they are very good at grandiose talk, big talk, big talk. I mean, this is the government you must be very concerned and worried about. They clearly have not taken the mandate that they have been given, the social contract they have with the people. The power sector as well, so many failed promises. Many of you may not have averted your mind to promise number 207 in the power sector. They promised to facilitate, in collaboration with the private sector, the establishment of an oil refinery in Second Takrady. Oil refinery in Second Takrady. Big promises. But they have forgotten about them. And as I told you, we have combed the manifesto. We provide you every promise that they made. We provide you with the page number. And when we do a snapshot for the energy sector as well, and provide you with all the relevant documents. Foreign affairs, the sector that I submitted considerable memoranda to the research committee that worked, 38% delivery. I did indicate that that is the best performing ministry. But even there are some failures. The ministry will facilitate linkages between ambassadors and high commissioners and MMDCs with the view of maximizing investment and trade opportunities for local authorities. That hasn't happened. They failed in that regard. The NPP will review existing policies to take into account the new world order with respect to developments like Brexit, the emergence of China and other BRIC nations, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. That policy has not been put together as we speak. We give them the NPP will prioritize the economic development opportunities in our foreign policy space. We give them that. But link our businessmen with foreign counterparts in strategic alliances. That is not happening. It's only the cronies, and then priority is given to foreign investors. That's not happening at all. You notice that promise number 218, a significant aspect of our foreign policy will be the promotion of the welfare of Ghanaians living in the diaspora. You know that initially when we in the minority said that, look, our compatriots are stranded abroad due to the closure of borders. They called us names, dismissed it, and all of that. As we speak, they are now struggling to put together a timetable. And even look at the cost. Look at the cost. Other countries, you can, if you are in distress, they give you a waiver. If you don't have money now, credit, you can pay later. And quarantine, as I said earlier, $12.7 million as part of the $100 million World Bank facility was approved in Parliament for quarantine. They haven't told us that that money is finished. So why do people have to pay 12,000 cedis, 14,000 cedis for 2 weeks quarantine? And why not even have a liberal regime where people can go online and choose hotels of their choice? If you make it competitive, you know the economic principle about competition. It will drive down the price. But you have selected just a few hotels, and you are forcing our compatriots abroad to choose those hotels. What was the criteria? What's the criteria in choosing just those few hotels? And forcing everybody to apply and putting out the rates. I mean, who does that? Who does that? This is not the empathy you show when your people are distressed. You are in a tight corner. Things are really dire. That's not what you do. That's not what you do. And that is why sometimes we complain about why people are not being patriotic. People are not loving Ghana and all of that. When you do things like this, I mean, let's think about it. Let's think about it. So we are not happy at all about how our compatriots abroad are being treated. So the foreign affairs snapshot is presented as well. Under governance, corruption, and public accountability, this is where they have fared very, very poorly. Though it's an poor performance, but there are some poorest of the poor performances, and the governance sector is one of them. Only 2 promises out of the 18 promises have been fulfilled. And they made very lofty promises. Let me run through them quickly. The NPP will also deepen political participation in bringing back the People's Assemblies to encourage citizens to participate in government. The People's Assembly concept has been abandoned. Poor President Kufuor, his own party will not follow his legacy, though they promised it. They've abandoned it. Promise 224, the NPP will fight corruption head-on through preventive, detective, corrective, and punitive actions. Apart from the rhymes, that's all what has happened in the corruption fight. Rhymes. That's all. And the Corruption Perception Index, we've attached the report at the end of this presentation. You see that we are dropping at our worst performance ever. The only thing they've done on governance is the Office of the Special Prosecutor. That has been delivered. But what has been the outcome of the delivery? All these corruption cases happening. Where is the Special Prosecutor? It's really troubling. Strengthening the institutions of state, which shall require the Attorney General to report to Parliament annually on the potential liability of the state arising out of claims against the state. That has not been done even once. Asset declaration regime, the President shall within 14 days forward a list of appointments made in person to Chapter 24 of the Constitution to the Auditor General, page 136. That has not been done. Effective monitoring of asset declaration by amending the law to require the Auditor General to publish periodically the list of all persons appointed under Chapter 24 of the Constitution who have declared their assets. It's not happening. The Auditor General is having a tough time getting people to comply. You have a situation where we are told that Parliament will be called upon to amend the law to provide for public disclosure of asset declarations. That has not happened. Code of conduct. As part of the fight against corruption, the NPP government shall enact, popularize, and enforce a comprehensive code of conduct of public officials so as to give full meaning and effect to the provisions of Article 284 of the Constitution. It's not done. Statutory funds. They promise that the NPP will establish an automatic mechanism of transfer of statutory funds to designated agents, such as the Ghana Education Trust Fund, GET Fund, District Assemblies Common Fund, and NHIS as stipulated. Ladies and gentlemen, that has not been done. Rather, what we have seen is that we in the minority, and on this note, let me salute the Honorable Benjamin Podo and the Honorable Richard Kwashiga, who came together in that joint effort to protect the District Assembly Common Fund. What the Finance Minister did was to rather define the 5% in the Constitution on his own terms, and he was shortchanging the district assemblies. It had to take a minority to go to court, and as I salute, often we always do that. We salute those who initiate the case, but the lawyers who prosecute the case, and Dr. Ayeni, I greet you wherever you are. I know you are in your constituency. He did a great job in that landmark Supreme Court decision that protected the District Assembly Common Fund. Remember also that they've introduced capping, where they have capped all of these funds. So instead of automatic transfers, that is not what is happening. And we are deeply worried in the minority about how these statutory funds are being treated. So I can go on and on and on. Promise number 232 is a particularly interesting one. Listen to what they say. Amend the relevant sections of the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, particularly sections 3, 151 and 239 to 257, to make corruption a felony rather than a misdemeanor. A felony rather than a misdemeanor. My brothers and sisters, they have forgotten about this promise. It doesn't even feature anywhere. But it's there in the manifesto, paragraph 137. Reform laws to set time limits within which an appointed authority must fill any vacancies to confirm a person acting in that office, where the institution has a watchdog role. You know my battles over the Shraj appointment of a second deputy commissioner. It had to take pressure in Parliament. More than 3 years, they kept that office vacant. They didn't fulfill that promise. That's why we scored them failed. So on this slide, it's failed, 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 failed. The only thing under governance is the right to information. And even that, we had a heated debate in our research work. Even that, though they have passed it, it's not been operationalized. When one of our colleagues, the Honorable Ashaman, Member of Parliament, decided to test the law with the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission said that there's been no LI approved, the fees and charges are not known, so we can't help you. You and your lawyer, Martin Pebu, please give us some rest. We can't help you. We just dismissed. So, but we have been charitable in general. So though it's not been operationalized, we give it to them that it's been passed. But that's not what the people of this country want. The people want the law to work, for it to be operationalized so that we can deepen transparency and accountability, achieve good governance. That is what matters. So you can go on and on. Promise number 239, resource the Auditor General's office to set up a procurement audit unit to conduct value for money audits with a view of detecting and prosecuting corrupt practices. That has not been done. Rather, the Auditor General, Yardom Levo, is under attack, and he's facing all kinds of persecution as we speak. His only crack is that he dared touch the senior minister in that infamous Crow audit case. So you can see for yourself, and we provide a snapshot, very detailed analysis with evidence why we score them so low under governance. The next segment we go to is growing together. I'll begin to run through the slides quite quickly. We just want to show you that we have been thorough with this exercise, and it's taken us a lot of weeks and a lot of months of painstaking effort. Growing together, 24% is the scorecard, and they have only delivered 6 out of the 25 promises that they made in that sector. And this is where you find the implement the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program, IPEP, one constituency, $1 million.